I feel like I haven't actually really talked about psychedelics in a while on this podcast, which is both like a conscious decision, but then also just kind of like, it's not like I'm tripping all the time. So I don't always have like something new to bring to the table about it. Um, but I also didn't want to get pigeonholed in like where you guys think that this podcast is only going to be talking about, as some people would call it drugs, but, as I would call it like plant medicine. Um, but like it's a cool topic and it's an interesting topic. And I think it's a topic that is not explored enough, and definitely not explored enough from like a scientific basis on the true effectiveness of it in various things. I've been really getting into learning about ancient cultures lately, and I watched like some stuff about ancient Egypt, and I listened to some of those Joe Rogan podcasts where he has on Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and stuff. And I don't know that I fully buy into Graham Hancock's like lost civilization that handed down some stuff to people, but I can buy that for sure. There's some gaps in our history, and definitely could have been erased by natural disasters. And there's evidence of a massive cataclysmic event that did happen, and they've seen it in the geological stuff. I forgot what, there was like some recent discovery that actually really validated at least their hypothesis of like a major flood. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on there. And I do wonder like what kind of wisdom came from some of these ancient psychedelic cultures, and at what point did that knowledge of that ancient psychedelic culture become taboo to the goals of those in power? Because, in ancient Greece, and this was another Joe Rogan podcast that he had with Graham Hancock, funny enough, but with this other guy, Brian something. I can't remember his name. And he just wrote a book, and it's a book that I'm definitely interested in reading at this point. I'm currently reading another book, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it's all about like how psychedelics were used in a lot of different cultures, including Greece, and they would put psychedelic plants in their wine. And wine is not the wine that you and I are probably most familiar with, right? It wasn't a Merlot or a Chardonnay or anything like that. It was like, they were like spiked wines essentially, and they would put different things in the wine. And there are a lot of there's a lot of evidence that certain types of psychedelic plants were actually put in these wines. And so, people would philosophize in Greece, and they would be drinking these psychedelic wines and would put them in, a psychedelic state similar to like taking some mushrooms or, being on an acid trip or something. And it would put you into that state of mind, and probably helped them really discover some interesting things. And how much of that has been lost because it's become forbidden knowledge that they didn't want to give the regular population. At the time, for sure, like knowledge was kept tight, and a lot of people were illiterate, so a lot of people couldn't read in those times. So you gotta like always have that context in mind of like, even if people were using psychedelics, it doesn't mean that they wanted everybody to be using it, because it would have allowed people to think for themselves. And that always is at the end of the day, I feel like that is like the ultimate reason why these things are illegal, is like they're going to allow people to think in a way that breaks cultural norms and disrupts the status quo. And when you disrupt the status quo, those who benefit from the status quo, people who are more conservative, we'll call them, who want to conserve everything as it is, they don't really want you to change things because it's going pretty good for them. And they believe, and I think this is a false belief, but they believe that if you were to change things, that means that it's going to take away from them. Now, to me, that is a scarcity mindset. That is a belief that there is not enough for everybody to go around. And so therefore, anything you take from me, or anything that you're given to somebody else is taking from me. I think that mindset is wrong. I mean, in the world that we live in today, it simply isn't true. However, there is a belief that there's only so much to go around. And this planet obviously has more than enough resources to feed everybody. This planet has more than enough resources to house everybody, and has more than enough resources for everybody to be able to find their specialty within the world. Unfortunately, we don't allow for that to happen. The political will isn't there. And not that the political will isn't there within the people, but for sure the people in power, the political will is not there because they're doing pretty good and they like the revolving door. Which is unfortunate because I feel like they're holding back progress. And this is on both sides. It's on both parties, man. And I'm talking specifically in America here. But honestly, if you look globally, I mean, you'll see the same struggle. And you'll see a rise in fascism as well in a lot of these different countries, where certain leaders are getting elected because they're using these like slimy, like simple-minded, like, oh, all of your problems are that immigrant over there, or it's really like rudimentary thinking, kind of primitive thinking of like, oh, it must be them. I don't know. It's obviously way more complicated than that. But when you try to boil it down to one simple thing, you're always gonna be wrong.